Hey besties, the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni shadow has completely overtaken Colleen Hoover's newest film release. Her latest adaptation, Regretting You, which dropped just last week, is already crashing and burning. And not just with audiences, but with critics too. If you go on TikTok right now, it's a massacre. Dozens of users are posting videos tearing the movie apart. Colleen Hoover needs to be put in jail. Regretting You was not good at all. That was the worst thing ever. Don't go see it. The reactions are brutal, and that's just the fans. The critics? Even worse. And that's a huge deal because critic reviews often decide whether a movie gets a second life or dies in its first week. Regretting You hit theaters with almost no marketing push from Paramount, no social buzz, and minimal fanfare. And the numbers prove it. Opening weekend box office totals were embarrassingly low compared to It Ends With Us. Despite all the controversy around Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and the Wayfarer fallout, It Ends With Us still became a massive box office win, $351 million globally on a $25 million budget. That's huge. A film needs to make about 2.5 times its budget to be considered successful. And It Ends With Us did that easily, opening domestically at $50 million and hitting $80 million worldwide in its first weekend. It was profitable immediately. Regretting You, though? Not even close. And that's where the pattern gets interesting, because the same problems that haunted It Ends With Us are resurfacing here. Question is, how much of that is actually about Blake Lively? Yes, part of the backlash is definitely tied to the ongoing drama surrounding her. But a lot of it stems from something deeper, the Colleen Hoover fatigue. Viewers are starting to reject what they're calling trauma porn, that uneven mix of pain, romance, humor, and tragedy that defines so many of Hoover's stories. Fans are frustrated by the tonal confusion. Am I watching a romance? A comedy? A thriller? What even is this? The storytelling feels messy. Too many emotional pivots, not enough substance. And many are tired of seeing women written into endless cycles of trauma for entertainment. What's worse is how Hoover handled her own involvement. She tried to downplay how much creative control she had, claiming she wasn't that involved, even though insiders confirmed she was in the editing bay with Blake Lively during It Ends With Us, and when Blake sued Justin Baldoni, someone Hoover had publicly praised and worked with for nearly 5 years, she immediately distanced herself from him, publicly sided with Blake, and then disappeared from social media when the internet backlash hit. Now, critics are calling Regretting You a creative disaster. The plot, according to the synopsis, follows a mother and daughter, Morgan and Clara, whose already strained relationship is shattered by a car accident that kills Morgan's husband and Clara's father. The investigation reveals a devastating betrayal, that the victims were having an affair. The two women must confront the fallout, rebuild their lives, and redefine their relationship. On paper, that's a powerful premise, but in execution, it's a tonal train wreck. The movie piles grief, secrets, betrayal, and random romance into one uneven emotional stew. There's even awkward product placement. Multiple scenes set in AMC theaters for no clear reason. And when The Hollywood Reporter, an outlet that had been openly friendly toward Blake Lively and the It Ends With Us team, publishes a scathing review calling Regretting You the film that could end the Colleen Hoover adaptation, praise, you know it's bad. The cast includes McKenna Grace, Willa Fitzgerald, Scott Eastwood, and Mason Thames, directed by Josh Boone. The review highlights Hoover's trademark problem, jumping between past and present, splitting stories in half. It's supposed to add emotional depth, but it just makes the plot feel fragmented and uneven. As THR put it, Regretting You splits itself into two barely connected stories, Morgan and Jonah's healing and Clara's teenage romance. The result is tonally chaotic. It's like the studio was trying to appeal to both mothers and daughters at once, but instead ended up satisfying neither. Because at the end of the day, Regretting You doesn't know what it wants to be. It's too dark for romance, too sentimental for drama, and too unfocused to leave an impact. And that, ironically, might be the real regret of this entire project. The tragedy in Regretting You is treated almost like an afterthought. Every so often, the film remembers that its story is built around staggering grief and betrayal, only to immediately shrug it off. Allison Williams, who's usually effortless and bright on screen, struggles to navigate those jarring emotional swings. And Dave Franco doesn't fare much better. Both seem unsure of how serious or lighthearted they're supposed to be from scene to scene. Critics have been ruthless. They point out that if the film had just focused on these two damaged adults, it might have had a chance to develop something real, a grounded emotional core. But as it stands, the performances feel lost, awkward, and unanchored. Like the actors themselves are surprised every time the camera turns on. Then there's the bigger issue, the movie's total lack of originality. The storytelling feels flat, uninspired, and emotionally hollow. Its sun-drenched North Carolina setting, syrupy score, and shallow sentimentality make it feel like a parody of a Nicholas Sparks film, except without the charm or the heart. The intention was probably to riff on that Sparks-style wholesome romance with a little scandal, but Regretting You ends up drowning in its own melodrama. What could have been an honest exploration of pain and forgiveness collapses into a soggy imitation of something we've all seen before. And that sentiment is echoed across major outlets. The Detroit News wrote that it's extremely difficult to take any of it seriously, when none of the characters seem to know what kind of movie they're in. Vulture said it's hard to tell how much of the humor is intentional, adding that everything feels so choreographed, so telegraphed. The abject lunacy ensues. The New York Times called it formulaic and predictable, with goofy writing and clumsy editing, saying the only saving grace was that the actors somehow managed to deliver ridiculous lines with straight faces. Even the Associated Press drew a direct comparison to It Ends With Us, saying Regretting You has its share of grief, but the strange way the tears give way to smiles, quips, and then full-on rom-com corniness feels awkward, weird, and ultimately annoying. Movie Mom labeled it soapy and insipid, though she admitted it's mildly watchable thanks to the cast's effort. And Slant Magazine might have delivered the harshest critique of all, blasting the film for having Allison Williams and Dave Franco, both in their late 30s, play teenage versions of their characters. They called it the most egregious example of Regretting You's indifference. The patterns are impossible to ignore. The same issues that plagued It Ends With Us, tonal confusion, jumbled structure, and an identity crisis between rom-com and trauma drama, are back again. Sure, the core tragedy this time isn't domestic violence, but it's still heavy material. A fatal car crash, infidelity, family betrayal, and emotional fallout. Yet somehow it's all wrapped in the glossy pastel tone of a feel-good romantic dramedy. It's the same tonal dissonance that critics pointed out before, like trying to turn a story about domestic abuse into a quirky love triangle. In It Ends With Us, the chemistry between Lily and Ryle was framed as cute banter, glossing over the fact that Ryle was abusive, and then justifying it with the excuse that he had a rough childhood. It's the same emotional shorthand trauma sold as romance. And audiences are finally tired of it. The truth is, people are getting fatigued with Colleen Hoover's entire formula. The constant mix of trauma, love, and redemption has worn thin. Her brand of storytelling now creates automatic backlash, which leads to bad reviews and in turn undercuts the box office. And when you combine that with any behind-the-scenes tension, like what we saw between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, the result is almost guaranteed chaos. One outlet even noted that before the legal blowout between Blake and Justin, It Ends With Us still managed to crush box office expectations, earning over $350 million worldwide and $148 million domestically on a $25 million budget. That's the kind of success studios dream about. But with Regretting You, all that momentum seems to have vanished, replaced with criticism, fatigue, and the growing realization that Colleen Hoover's movie magic might finally be wearing off. And here's where things start to connect. The failure of Regretting You isn't just about one bad movie. It's a symptom of a much bigger problem. The Colleen Hoover machine that once guaranteed viral attention and instant bestsellers is starting to fall apart. When It Ends With Us first went viral, Hoover's name was synonymous with modern romance. Every TikTok bookshelf had her covers, every influencer was crying on camera about her stories. But somewhere between the emotional manipulation, the messy film adaptations, and the online backlash, audiences realized something. The formula was always the same. A young woman, a traumatic event, a complicated love story that blurs morality until it's no longer clear who's right or wrong. At first, it felt raw and emotional. Now it feels predictable, even exploitative. Critics are calling it trauma for clicks, a kind of storytelling that packages abuse and grief into marketable romance. And when you've seen it play out once, twice, 10 times, the illusion starts to crack. The Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni feud only amplified that fatigue. What should have been a breakout moment for the Hoover cinematic universe turned into months of PR disasters, legal filings, leaked documents, and viral outrage. By the time Regretting You arrived, the audience wasn't curious. They were cautious. Paramount's quiet marketing didn't help either. There were no flashy premieres, no heavy influencer campaigns, no viral push. It was almost as if the studio wanted to release it quietly and hope for the best. But box office numbers don't lie. Without hype or goodwill, Regretting You stumbled out of the gate, failing to even match the opening weekend numbers of It Ends With Us. And that's when the dominoes started to fall. Industry insiders are already whispering that this could mark the end of the Colleen Hoover adaptation wave. After It Ends With Us made $350 million, studios rushed to acquire her other titles, hoping for another easy hit. But the tone of Regretting You, and the critical response, has scared them off. Because here's the truth. You can't build a franchise on controversy. Audiences might tune in once for the drama, but they won't stick around if they stop believing in the story. And Colleen Hoover's stories have lost that emotional credibility. It's not just viewers, it's the actors too. Insiders claim that several A-listers have quietly stepped back from upcoming Hoover projects, unwilling to risk their reputations after seeing what happened to Blake Lively. Some even demanded script rewrites before signing anything. Meanwhile, the media narrative keeps circling back to the same theme, that the entire brand has become toxic. Every article, every review, every panel discussion connects the dots back to It Ends With Us, to Blake, to Justin, to that courtroom drama that no one can forget. Because like it or not, that feud became the defining story. Not the movie, not the book, but the chaos that came with it. And in Hollywood, perception is everything. When a studio sees that one name, one feud, or one scandal can overshadow an entire film's release, that's when budgets shrink, scripts stall, and calls stop coming. And that's exactly what's happening now. Colleen Hoover's creative world, once a goldmine of relatable heartbreak, is now being viewed as brand risk. Paramount, which poured millions into developing her catalog, is reportedly re-evaluating its next adaptations. And according to trade insiders, other studios are quietly doing the same. Because after Regretting You, it's no longer just about whether audiences like her stories, it's whether they still trust them. And when trust is gone, no amount of marketing can bring it back. Colleen Hoover's second film adaptation, Regretting You, opened to just $12.9 million in its first weekend. A sharp drop that raised serious questions about whether her stories still resonate on the big screen. Many critics say the real issue isn't the production itself, but the source material. Her writing style often blends heavy trauma with humor, creating what some call a darkly emotional tone. But that mix doesn't always translate well to film. Audiences usually want to feel one clear emotion. They go to see a heartfelt romance, a dark thriller, or a light comedy. When a movie tries to be all of those at once, it risks alienating everyone. Another outlet put it this way: Colleen Hoover is a divisive author. Her romance novels are frequently described as toxic or anti-feminist, and that controversy has followed her success. When her stories were adapted for Hollywood, especially It Ends With Us, that criticism only grew louder. After the lawsuits between Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and the production company Wayfarer Studios, public perception of Hoover took another hit. Fans started to feel that she'd turned her back on the very people who helped bring her stories to life. And while Hoover built a massive audience on BookTok and sold millions of copies, not every bestseller is made for the big screen. Wayfarer took a risk adapting It Ends With Us, and when that partnership soured, many fans saw it as a betrayal, both creatively and personally. The backlash also centered on how domestic violence was portrayed. What was supposed to be a sensitive, emotional story became overshadowed by marketing missteps and behind-the-scenes controversy. Critics accused the team, including Blake and Colleen, of treating the subject matter too casually. Now, the Blake Lively effect seems to be working against Hoover. The controversy around the film, combined with audience fatigue and disappointing box office numbers, has made studios hesitant to touch her next projects. Even though she has upcoming adaptations, including one reportedly starring Anne Hathaway, there's growing doubt about their potential success. If Regretting You fails to break even, it could mark a turning point in how Hollywood views Hoover's brand. Once films start losing money, and especially when an author is linked to public scandal, studios tend to step back. The truth is, this might not just be a Colleen Hoover problem. It could reflect a broader cultural shift. Viewers are tired of stories that revolve around women suffering or relying on men to save them. That kind of narrative feels outdated, especially in today's social and political climate. So, maybe this isn't just the end of a film trend. It's a sign of what audiences no longer want to see. But what do you think? Has the Blake Lively effect really hurt Colleen Hoover's career, or was this downfall inevitable? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. See you next time, besties.